The commissioner should have a copy of, I guess we just refer to them as exhibits, that the emails, string of emails that were provided to me with regards to the various conversations between Ms. Matson and the sheriff's personnel. I've also included copies of pertinent newspaper articles in which various statements with regards to the emails and other statements were made that I thought would be important for the commissioners to look at. And I believe that there's copies that we have available for the public if the chairman wants those distributed to the public at this time.
They're available.
They're available.
Yes. Anybody like a copy? Just raise your hand. Is that you, Todd?
Give me one. All right. Thanks.
I just wondered if that was you.
I just asked if that was you.
It's me.
I guess it's him.
I'll get one for you, thank you. Just stay here.
Yeah. Right. As I can explain to you, she's trying to calm it down. They're escalating. The real relevant is when she finally does do it. It's a 5:59 after working hours.
Shoot the battery in my bag.
If it doesn't, at 11:12 a.m. Right on county.
Mr. Cooney, your microphone is on.
Sorry.
Oh, it's out of whack. It'll be just a few minutes, Joni. You know, when two attorneys talk, it takes time.
A lot of time.
Yeah, if you could have it, yeah.
That's okay, I'm talking to Deborah Beatty up here, and how surprised she was to wake up to what she woke up to this morning. 6 inches of snow.
Can you keep that up there for the next 4 minutes?
Dan, knowing how the sun shines up here, we'll be lucky if we can keep it through the afternoon. I think Commissioner Wickman is here, Commissioner Hunter.
I don't see her.
We just saw her walking by the window.
Tell her that $25 for being late.
You tell her.
No, I'll forget about it. Okay, Mr. Cooney, are we ready? Or?
We are ready.
Okay.
I would, what do you want me, what do you want from me at this stage of the game as far as?
Well, the reason we're here and what we're supposed to be taking under advisement or what?
Well, it's my understanding that the reason the meeting was called, that I did not call the meeting, so I don't understand. But the bottom line is that there was an issue raised with concerns about statements that were made. I guess just as a introduction, what I would indicate to the commissioners is that I would call your attention to Nye County Personnel Policy Code of Ethical Standards, Article 2.13, which dictates that the elected officers and appointed officers and employees of Nye County recognize that holding public office and/or employment is a public trust. To preserve that trust, we demand the highest code of conduct and ethical standards. A part of those standards indicate that the officers and employees of Nye County shall comply with the following provisions. This list is not inclusive, but simply provides the basic level
of conduct that we expect from either appointed officials, elected officials, or employees of Nye County.
Thank you, yes. All elected officials and elected officials and appointed officials and employees will conduct themselves with honesty and integrity in the course of performing their duties and responsibilities. And additionally, they will at all times act in a way that upholds the values and the integrity and good reputation of Nye County. The provision also provides, at the end of that article, that violations of any of these above provisions may result in disciplinary action up to and including termination. Discipline is defined in the policy manual as a suspension generally without pay, involuntary demotion, reduction in pay, discharge, or written reprimand or verbal warning. My legal conclusion with this is, although the policy manual specifies certain forms of discipline, really by state law, you would be prohibited from implementing many of those forms of discipline. Pay for elected officials are set by state statute. You have no authority to demote an elected official. And so my advice to you is that suspension without pay, involuntary demotion, reduction in pay, or discharge are not forms of discipline that this board could impose upon an elected official. However, written reprimand or verbal warning are avenues available to the board if they find that the statements and conduct as set forth in the exhibits, in your opinion, violate the ethical standards that are set forth in the policy manual.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
If it's okay, I'd like to step in and start directing, well, not really directing, but I would like to lead off with some questions in this part of the agenda. Is that okay?
That's fine.
I first want to address my comments to Mr. Coonsey. Brian, I see that Ms. Lord is sitting next to Mrs. Matson. What is the role that Mrs. Lord is playing, and does that change the scope of this hearing this morning?
It really does not change the scope of the hearing. And I also do want to say that, for the record, I want to provide proof pursuant to NRS 241 that Ms. Matson was provided written notice in writing of the content or the subject matter of this meeting, and that's a requirement to make that part of the record with regards in order to proceed with a matter of this nature. And I have provided the copy of the proof of notice in compliance with that. Sorry, Commissioner.
No, that's okay. That was actually going to be my second question, was whether or not Mrs. Matson had been notified according to law, and you answered that for me, so thank you very much. The initial thing that I want to focus on is simply the nature of the comments that were sent to the sheriff and the appropriateness of Mrs. Matson trying to induce action by the sheriff on a matter that I'm not really sure was within her purview. The first question that I have for Mrs. Matson is, how did you conclude, Shirley, that the workers could not speak English?
I'm Nancy
I'm not
Lord.
directing that comment to you, Mrs. Lord. I'm directing that to Mrs. Matson. If I could get an answer from Mrs. Matson. How did you conclude that the workers could not speak English?
One moment.
I didn't make that conclusion. That is what I was told.
Mrs. Matson, you said in your emails that threats had been made, and I believe that I saw also some subsequent articles in the newspaper that claimed that there were threats made. What exactly were the threats that were made?
I didn't say there were any threats.
Mrs. Matson, how did you conclude that the workers outside your office were illegal residents? How did you come to that conclusion?
I didn't come to that conclusion. I was told that.
And who told you that?
A volunteer employee for the county.
A volunteer employee for the county in what capacity?
I don't know. I mean, other than the fact that he was driving a county truck and pulling an empty trailer and delivering something back or forth or carrying something out of the jail construction site outside of my office.
Do you know that employee's name?
It's Ben Gully, I believe is his name.
Oh, with the sheriff's office. When you said earlier that you did not conclude on your own that the workers could not speak English, you said you were told that. Who told you that? Who allegedly told you that?
Ben Gully.
Mrs. Matson, you also claimed in your emails and the newspaper articles that there were specific complaints made by staff and other employees. Can you please tell me what those complaints were that were made by your staff members?
I think you're not reading it correctly. I didn't say that my staff had any complaints. Concerns maybe, but I think what you're referring to is where I'm explaining to the sheriff that these people can plainly see what's going on back there.
Okay, that's the part that confuses me, because what they could probably plainly see was the fact that there were a group of individuals out there working. But beyond that, what could they plainly see that made them concerned enough to come to you and voice those concerns? And specifically, what were those concerns?
Well, it wasn't all of my staff, and
Okay, that's fine, I understand that.
so
You know, generally, how many staff members and what did they say? What specifically did they say that made them concerned enough to, or saw that made them concerned enough to
I
come
have
to
a,
you?
you know
and
what, I
voice
have a
that?
couple of documents, and just for my staff, I'm not going to bring them into this service.
No, you already brought them into this circus. You brought them in because you already said that they approached you with their concerns. You just said that on the record not 2 minutes ago. That they
We
wanted
gave a
to
couple of
find-
documents to Attorney Kunze.
My question is, what document addresses this particular point with regards to the concerns that were raised by your staff that prompted you to indicate in your letter to Tony that this was in part driven by concerns of your staff with regards to these supposedly illegal workers over at the jail?
Can you please tell me what you're referring to and what email? Because I don't even know what you're talking about.
You start your email from the standpoint of my staff, me, taxpayers coming to our office, see that these construction employees are all Mexican, Latino, non-English speaking, and I'm getting complaints. You reference in here specifically one of the reasons why is the safety of my staff. You're indicating that you're concerned about these Mexican, Latino-looking, non-English speaking people as posing a threat to the safety of your staff. And that's not the only reference into all of these string of emails that we have in which you do make reference to your staff indicating or your concern over the safety of your staff as being one of the primary reasons why this complaint was made to the sheriff. So my question to you is specifically then, where in the documentation that you provided for the commissioners to help them look through this, what supports or answers the question from the commissioner with regards to what you were told by a staff member that expressed their concern over safety with these Hispanic, Latino-looking people who don't speak English working in the sheriff's jail?
I provided you with some documents. Why don't you look at them? They are. It's a documentation from one of my clerks when the day it occurred and how I acted when I came in. Now, I only have 3 people that work on that day. And
Is that the affidavit? I'm trying to avoid us having to take a break to go through all this. If you just please assist the commissioners. This is not me, this is the commissioners as far as what they have that they can read that will answer that question.
If you could let me jump in, we have a formal declaration from a Clifford Hubble who made a report to Ms. Matson after his wife and daughter went to the assessor's office and noticed this. And we have another more informal, but it is sworn under penalty of perjury from one of the clerks about what Ms. Matson said when she came back after the encounter, which Ben now denies. But there were, my client is not willing to name names here, but she was getting numerous people coming to the office and saying, what's going on? All this initial email is asking a question. It's a report to law enforcement. It should not have gone anywhere. The dissemination of this email was highly inappropriate. This is like disseminating a police report. She just asked a question. And if you read the email string carefully, you'll see that at every level, the sheriff's department is escalating it. Ms. Matson is trying to diffuse it. She's saying things like, can't we agree to disagree? Stop it. Her responses are short. She doesn't write a long response until 5:49 in the afternoon, after working hours. And yet Sheriff DeMayo, several days later, has a 3-page email that he wrote at 11:12 a.m. on county computers on county time. Perhaps the wrong person is sitting here. There's also, and this email that was publicized in the Pahrump Valley Time, allegedly on 10/99, October 29th of 2010, was not written by my client. People looked for it. There was a list that luckily the Pahrump Valley Times did not publish. It appeared to be a CCSC list. It is in the package that I gave you. It has the same names as this email that was allegedly about illegal immigration. It was written on October 29th at 10:27. The other one says noon. Has exactly the same names up to a point. I deleted them. And my copy that I've given you that says remainder of names deleted for privacy also demonstrates how easy it is to change the content of a forwarded email. And no email looks like this with a 2-column header. Somebody who's seen a computer for 3 months would know that's not an email. And the Pahrump Valley Times put this on the front page above the fold. Now the sheriff's office is denying having given it to them. Either they sent this to more people than Bill Becht and Rick Marshall, or one of those 3 sent it to the Pahrump Valley Times, because I don't think that Mr. Osborne would have done that. And I know my client didn't do that.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I could go back to,
Somebody
Mr. Coonsey had asked about
Please
the,
shut off your cell phones, please. Thank you.
Mr. Coonsey had asked about the affidavits, or you mentioned the affidavits. Are they supposedly in this packet you gave us?
No, Commissioner Shinhofen, they're not. Unfortunately, we didn't have multiple copies of those.
Okay.
We only had one copy that I gave to Mr. Coonsey, and I believe it's being passed around. There's a formal declaration and an informal declaration.
Okay, I don't have it yet.
That statement's not from a employee.
One of them is. The formal one is from a friend, the other one's from an employee.
And just again, to clarify that I understood Commissioner Easley's question to be not identifying who said what to you, but simply asking you specifically what was sent, what was provided to you as a complaint from a staff member that you used as a basis to initiate this email, making reference to your staff and the threat to your staff.
Thank you, Mr. Coonsey. You clarified that. I appreciate that. That's exactly what I was asking.
I'm not going to give any more names out.
I didn't ask you for a name. I asked you for the specifics of the concern that was brought to you by the employee that would have prompted you to go to the sheriff's office. What was the concern specifically that was brought to you by the employee?
That's confidential information.
That's confidential information, but obviously if it had gone into a report from the report to the sheriff's office, that would have been a public document.
Had the sheriff's office investigated this instead of just disseminating it all over the place and putting it on the front page of the Times, perhaps the person would have been willing, or her sons, to come forward and express their observations and statements to Ms. Matson.
Mr. Cooney, did you have something?
Well, I think if I can understand what I'm being told here, is that the only basis for the information that was part of Ms. Matson's email that started this was statements made by Mr. Gurley. My suggestion is Mr. Gully is here, and if you would like to hear Mr. Gully's testimony with regards to his conversation with Ms. Matson on the morning of March 11th, I think that it might be useful for the commissioners to understand what's happening.
Okay. Mr. Gully, are you in the audience?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I have another question for Mr. Coonsey. I don't believe that we're sitting in a quasi-judicial fashion, but is it required to swear in witnesses?
It is not.
Okay, thank you.
I'm going to make my statement on the oath.
That's okay. Yeah. Mr. Cooney?
Would you like me to proceed?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question.
Hold on 1 minute. Commissioner Eastman's got the floor right now, or Mr. Cooney has the floor right now. Have you got a second, Mr. Cooney?
Sure, yeah.
Commissioner Brodsky has a question. Go ahead.
If Mr. Gully wants to have himself sworn in, what's wrong with that? If he voluntarily wants to do it.
I'm not sure I don't know if we have somebody here who's capable of
We
swearing.
don't have anybody from the clerk's office,
Yeah.
and they're the ones that have to do it, so, okay.
And I think the fact that he's indicated that he's willing to take an oath would probably speak.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead, Mr. Cooney.
Mr. Goliad, what I'd like to do is refer to statements that were attributed to Ms. Matson as reported in the Front Valley Times. Indicates that she said that you had complained about the workers not being from Pahrump. Did you make that complaint to Ms. Matson?
No, I made no complaint at all.
How did this interaction with Ms. Matson begin?
I was coming back, I had picked up some evidence and I was returning back to the SO. Our gate now runs through their parking lot. As I pulled into the parking lot, there was a lady getting out of her car, and she flagged me down. I'd never seen her before. I'd never met the auditor before in my life. I didn't even know she was the auditor. She stopped me and she asked me, "Why are you guys driving through my lot?" And I said, "Well, there's a road there now, and they put a gate in, a temporary gate, until they put the new gate in after the jail was built." And then she introduced herself to me as the new auditor for Nye County, and I congratulated her on her job. While we were talking, she asked me why were all the Mexicans working out in the yard there, and when I looked over, there were 2 Mexicans working at the keypad where you come into the gate. And I said, "Well, there's only 2, but you should have seen it when they built the other jail. There were a lot there." And she went on to start explaining to me the problems that she had with that, and that she did not think it was right that illegals should be taking the jobs that the Americans should have. I did agree with her, and I feel that way myself. She went on to tell me that she had had some problems with Mexicans in San Diego. I think it was their daughter was hit by a car or something, and it caused them a lot of financial problems, and that that she was going to do something about these illegals working around here. And we spoke more about they didn't speak English. She went on to tell me about the sheriff was a liar, and that I should talk to him about these illegal aliens. And when I go into the office, I was to tell Tony that he's a liar, and that he's not doing anything about the illegal aliens. And I said, and this is true, I knew Tony DeMeo before he was sheriff. I worked with his wife, and I explained to her that the sheriff may have a lot of downfalls, but I didn't think that lying was one of them. And she says, "That's okay." She says, "I'm going to email him." And I said, "There you go, email him." And she started a little dance like, and she told me that she was a Tea Party Minuteman. And I was quite excited over that. I watched the news a lot. I never met a Tea Party or person or a Minuteman. And she was quite excited, and she excused herself for getting so excited, but she says it excites her. We concluded our conversation, and I made it clear when I was talking to her that I wasn't going to be involved. Now, as far as she told me about being afraid to talk to Tony about any problem I have, I tell Tony or anybody at the sheriff's office or anybody in this county, I'm not afraid to tell anyone in this county how I feel anytime I see him. I have no problem. I've went to Tony quite a few times. He has an open door policy. Rick Marshall, Captain Beck, I walk in their office and I complain about good things, bad things, my wife, or anything I want to complain about. I would not go to the assessor's office to register a complaint about an illegal alien. It'd be like calling DMV to report my house was on fire. I am not a part of this conversation. I don't think illegals should be here, but if President Obama can't get them out, I doubt if anything I can do to get them out. However, next time I get my taxes, I'll go over there. If my conversation has that much pull, I should have had lowering of my taxes while I was holding this conversation. I'm not involved in this, nor do I want to be involved in this.
I really appreciate it. Let me just ask you that there's a quote in the newspaper from Ms. Matson that says, "She stopped me in the parking lot. She wanted to know why," oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, she stopped me in the parking lot. She wanted to know why we were driving through the lot. Oh, let me back up. I'm sorry. Let me back up a little bit. It quotes as saying, "That's what Ben did. You know, he stopped me when I was going in. He says there's not one American on that construction site." Is that an accurate statement of what you indicated to Ms. Matson? Or what happened between you and Ms. Matson?
We talked a lot. but it was just talk. I don't know her. I've never seen her before. This is the second time I've ever seen her in my life. You know, I have people that stop me on the street and says, when you go back, tell that sheriff I see him on the street, I'm going to whoop him and everything else. I get these messages every day. Sometimes I worry about him. I think maybe I should go home with him. I'll take care of him. This is totally ridiculous, you know, and I don't know how I got drug into this. Has nothing to do with this. Nothing. Most of the statements that I read in this, I was surprised when I read this. I just found out all I said. I don't know how to defend this. Well, she's sitting right there.
The question is, did you say it or did you not say it?
What question was that?
Well, one, did you stop her when she was going into the office?
No, I didn't even know her.
And did you tell her that there's not one American on that construction site?
No. There's no one hardly working there. The people that are working there are sitting in the back there. There's some white guys back there, and they had two Mexicans. If I would have been insulted, I didn't see no blacks, you know. We didn't have blacks out there.
That's all the questions I have, Mr. Chairman.
May I ask a few questions, just a few?
No, I really don't want to debate with you because this has nothing to do with me. Why are you wasting my time?
No, I agree, Mr. Coonsey, and Mr. Chairman, I say that we let Mr. Gully go, and thank you very much.
The statute does say that Ms. Matson is entitled to representation. I can't be effective if I can't ask one or two little questions of a witness against her.
Mr. Coonsey?
Well, actually, the statute says if we go to closed session, she's entitled to have an attorney represent her at a closed session. This is not in a closed session, so there's not technically a right to counsel at something of this nature. But it's really solely up to the commissioners if you want to give her the opportunity to ask some cross-examination questions. There's nothing inappropriate with it. There's nothing that requires it.
Mr. Chairman, I think I would leave that up to the discretion of Mr. Gully. I think Mr. Gully's made it clear that he doesn't want to be involved in this. If he would be willing to come back and answer some questions
Ben,
from Mrs.
do you have any problems answering Mrs. Ward's question?
I really do, because noticing from the way she was acting when she was sitting there, it's just going to be he said, she said.
Okay,
she don't want to talk to no one. I don't want to talk to her.
You're excused. Okay. What's next?
Chairman, I want to go back to these concerns that were expressed by staff. Mrs. Matson, on Friday, March 11th at 12:23 p.m., sent an email to Sheriff DeMayo, and I'll read directly from that email. Calling me racist because I bring up concerns expressed to me by staff and others is not enough for such an inappropriate comment towards me. Tony responded to you the same day at 12:47 p.m. saying that no one, repeat, no one has come to this office to state the concerns you stated. And you responded to him that same day at 1:07 p.m. saying, that's easy enough. They are afraid they will be retaliated against, or they are not aware of the situation. Come on, Tony, all we have to do is look out the window. Not everyone can do that. You stated within a short period of time, several times, that concerns were brought to you by your staff and the public. Will you please tell me specifically what those concerns were?
Okay. Again, I provided affidavits. And one of the affidavits, my employees are going to tell you how I came in after the encounter with Mr. Gully. And what we discussed, and there were some concerns. I do not want to get my staff in trouble. You can see what happened to me. So I'm not going to really get them any deeper trouble.
No. You got yourself in trouble, Mrs. Matson. You're the one who repeatedly brings up in these emails and the newspaper interviews that your staff brought complaints to you and concerns. I'm simply asking you, I'm not asking for you to identify anybody. I don't care who said it. I care about what was said.
Okay,
I
here's
wanna know
what was said.
specifically what those concerns were.
Here's what was said. When I came into the office, now remember, I only have 3 employees on Friday.
Yeah.
Because we have
Right.
and only 2 of them were present. And so I came in after the encounter, of which you all know which is the absolute truth. And I said, I have an employee who came to this country legally. She's came from Germany. So she got a little bit fired up because, she came here legally and she doesn't go along with having someone come in here, undocumented. And my other clerk said to me that, and this said that she would be concerned if there were undocumented people in the, right behind her office.
She said she would be concerned if there were undocumented employees behind her office.
Yes.
Behind your office. So what led anybody, but primarily you, to believe that those workers were here illegally, that they could not speak English, that they were undocumented? What was your probable cause to contact the sheriff's office and ask that they do an investigation? What was your probable cause?
Well, I don't know, as an elected official, and when my constituents, and I have left documents, other people are asking me questions, I would be remiss if I didn't follow up on that. That's all I did. I'm not making any allegations. I don't know where you're getting that from, and I'm offended by that.
Okay, fine. But Mrs. Matson, I'm gonna go back to the whole issue of probable cause. Yes, if there is indeed a problem that you believe exists, that warrants an investigation, you have a right and an obligation to bring that to the attention of the sheriff. However, if you want him to launch an investigation or to launch an investigation based on a sweeping generalization of something that you think might happen based on a comment made by one of your employees that she would be concerned if there were illegal aliens working in town, to my way of thinking, that is not probable cause. That does not justify an investigation.
Well, I don't know, I didn't ask for an investigation.
Hold on. Commissioner Eastley has the floor.
Oh,
So
sorry.
direct
Sure you
your,
did.
I'm sorry, I thought you
You
was
said,
finished.
I have several concerns. This is in your 11:10 a.m. email on Friday, March 11th to Sheriff DeMayo and Mr. Osborne. I have several concerns. One, did the county do its due diligence and have their citizenship checked on E-Verify? 2, isn't that a required federal law? 3, the safety of my staff, you bring that up again. And 4, are Nye County residents being employed? I have no problem calling ICE.
Those were my
And,
questions.
And you followed that up with another email to the sheriff. Now I want answers to my questions, and this was at 12:23 p.m. I want answers to my questions. Your job is to uphold the law, so do it. I'm just asking you, what law was broken? What was your probable cause to ask the sheriff to, quote, uphold the law, end quote, or to investigate the legality of those people working in the United States?
I'm going to object here, Commissioner Eastley. This misstates the evidence. In between those 2 emails by Ms. Matson was a long email from Sheriff DeMayo to Ms. Matson that says the comments sent are racist, pure and simple. I know many people, but to say that she followed up without acknowledging that there was a lengthy email to which she responded, and that's when she wrote back at 12:23 p.m. with a 3-line email to the sheriff in response to his 4-paragraph email.
Yeah,
That
all
was
right.
very
Yeah, that's
derogatory.
fine.
Your
That's
comments are
fine.
totally unreasonable. Fears because the workers are not white. That makes them a danger to the community. Question. The workers are subcontractors. Finally, call ICE if it makes you feel better. I will point out to you that many non-U.S. citizens are part of our military fighting for your rights. It disheartens me that you, an elected official, have made the comments that were sent. So he's the one that escalated this, Commissioner Eastley. All Ms. Matson did was ask a question. And we're all here.
again, I'll state for the record that the compilation of the emails that I see in my backup this morning is that Nye County law enforcement has a duty to investigate workers, and this is alleged by Mrs. Matson, that they have a duty to investigate workers for subcontractors because she believes that she and her staff and others are uncomfortable with being in close proximity with her office due to the fact that these workers are likely to be illegal based on the fact that they, and this is according to her, that they look Hispanic or Latino and that they don't speak English. Now, I didn't say that. I'm taking these from the emails and from the newspaper interviews.
Once her questions were answered by Mr. Osborne with a letter from Layton Construction that they were in fact documented, she hung the letter in both of her offices, plainly visible, so people coming in would see, and that should have been the end of it. Had the sheriff simply answered her question, instead of inflaming this, it would not have gone this far.
Madam Commissioner, may I interject here for a moment?
I wish you would.
Thank you. There was a statement made that there was no request for an investigation by Ms. Matson. And what I would like to point out is the way the original string of emails went started with her first email at 11:10, which was responded to by the sheriff at 11:50. She then responds back at 12:23. And then we've already heard where there was reference from Tony, the sheriff, basically saying no one's made any such outcry. And then to go further, Commissioner Easley, in the email that you had quoted to previously, it also says in all cap and bold, third time, are these workers legal citizens of the United States of America? Have they been checked out via E-Verify? Do they live in Nye County? Is this something I will have to use the Freedom of Information Act to get? I'm making a formal request for this information from you, whether you like it or not. I see it as a potential safety issue. I have received many, many inquiries, including employees of NSCO this very day, which I'm assuming is Mr. Gully. So here is your first all caps outcry. How is it that you are being so reluctant to let me know? Then we go into another response from the sheriff, again saying, what probable cause do you have for me to start questioning a person's immigrant status? First question that the sheriff asked in his reply. And then she comes back again saying, my concerns and those of other good tax-paying citizens of Nye County who don't want their tax dollars going out of the country and the county and fear for their safety, are you saying that is not enough? I'm believing not enough to investigate and look into this matter. Come on, is there no shortage of meth labs and dog fights in Pahrump, generally an activity of illegally immigrants? You need probable cause for what? To answer my simple questions? So because of your ideology, you refuse to enforce the law. All caps, wow. I'll find another way. Have a great day.
Thank you, Mr. Cooney. Mrs. Matson, I'm going to refer back to the email that was sent by you at 1:07 p.m. on Friday, March 11th, and I'll just extract one sentence there. I'm making a formal request for this information from you, whether you like it or not. I see it as a potential safety issue. I have received many, many inquiries, inquires, it says, many inquires, including employees, plural, of NCSO this very day. Besides Mr. Gully, who's a volunteer auxiliary member, what other employees of NCSO did you receive complaints from? Because that is plural, indicating that more than one employee of the sheriff's office.
Several employees, many citizens that come in. Generally the questions are, why are we building that jail back there? We can't really afford it. Who are those guys working back there? So I was fielding a lot of questions. And so okay, all I wanted to do, I have the floor, excuse me, all I wanted to do was be able to provide something so that when people came in to our office and asked those questions that were coming to me repeatedly, I could give them something to look at, because I did not know. Now, on these emails that, I know that, I can see here on some of these emails with Tony, I mean, he does like to think of things in terms of an educator or a teacher, or he thinks of everybody as police people, and so he's going on, and I guess telling me all of the laws. I'm not a police officer. I'm just a measly old assessor, and all I wanted was some assistance. Now, Mr. Osborne did the very appropriate thing. He went ahead and got the information. It's posted on the wall, and it's a dead issue as far as I'm concerned.
Well, unfortunately, we're here this morning, so it's far from dead, Mrs. Matson. But again, I'm going to ask you, you specifically mentioned in your email of 1:07 p.m. on Friday, March 11th, that you received many inquiries from employees, plural, of the Nye County Sheriff's Office. I want to know, besides Mr. Gully, who were the other employees of the Sheriff's Office and what were their concerns?
That was probably a typo.
Okay, all right, I'll accept that. That's great, thank you. And as for Sheriff DeMayo purporting to set himself up as an instructor in these emails, I don't see where he references the law anywhere. I do see where he references common sense and rejects sweeping generalizations that are made about a group of workers over at the New County Jail site. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes. Gentlemen, you got the floor.
Thank you. My only question is in the very first email, where you state, employees can plainly see that the construction employees are all Mexican, Latino, non-English speaking. And that seems to be the criteria for wanting to decide whether they're here illegally or not.
Okay, I'd be happy to answer that. You probably want to know why I'm thinking that. A little bit of the backstory. As most people know, I work in the builder industry in San Diego, California. I work for a rather large builder called Party Homes. When it resulted in the fact that they had some illegal workers on their property and there was a raid, it cost them millions. Now, I have been elected by the citizens to do the right thing and look out in their best for their well-being. So in my mind, I was already fielding questions, and so it seemed to be like it was sort of escalating, and in my mind, I wanted to go ahead and find out what was going on so that it did not become an issue, therefore bringing embarrassment to our county.
Do you see where that statement could be considered bigoted? Because they're Latino, Mexican, non-English speaking, and therefore assuming that they're illegal. Do you see where that could be seen as a bigoted statement?
Well, you know, I do get people that, in fact, they've even called Nancy, Spanish-speaking people, good citizens that are pointing out where there are illegals. Now, I guess maybe because of the language barrier, they pick up on it. And this is what it wasn't any other type of nationality that was there. You know, if it were Canadians or Frenchmen or whatever else, I probably would have said the same thing. It is not a bigoted. It was simply a question.
So when I read, that's the thing that concerned me when I read it. It immediately sounds like because they're speaking another language, they happen to be Latino, Mexican, as you phrase it.
Well,
therefore, they may be or must be illegal. Don't you see how that can be derived from that? I mean,
well, that certainly wasn't in my line of thinking. I'm a very busy person, and so this was a short little note, and you know, maybe it wasn't well thought out, but I'm not a bigot.
I understand your statements. All the other stuff that's come out afterwards, you know, I hate that we're here. I hate that all of this has come up. But I see that, to me, looks bigoted, that because they're, and believe me, I'm as concerned as you are or anybody else about illegal immigration and what it's doing to our country, but just because a group of people are speaking another language doesn't give the sheriff the right to go investigate them to see if they're legal or not.
Well, let me kind of tell you why Mr. Coonsey got involved. There was an incident probably several months back, and when I came before the commissioners, and I brought up the incident of Threadfest. While I was at that meeting, it was a video meeting, I was sitting there, I had another person was sitting there, and after my presentation, I came and sat down, and Tony DeMeo was there. And he got very irritated, very loud, and he said, one of his things to me was, why didn't you call me first? Why didn't you let me know? So out of courtesy for that, because I included him in the email.
Okay, but then when he told you he has no probable cause,
I didn't, yes, go.
you continued to press him to do his job.
I just wanted answers to the question. As I said, I wanted something that I had in my hand when I was fielding questions that I could show the people. That's all it was. There was no other kind of ultimate motive.
The other concerns that I have is that you received all these phone calls. I didn't even receive any phone calls on any of whether they're illegal there or not, because the company checks. What I got was for the last week. I haven't been able to think about anything else because I've got nothing but phone calls about your statements. And the one thing they all have in common is the phone calls and people stopping me in the grocery store is they're very passionate. The people who addressed their concerns to me were very passionate about either seeing you as some kind of hero or wanting you run out of town on a rail. So no matter what we do, half the people are probably going to be very upset with us. And on the face of it, and that just the one email, forget about it. I'm not even considering all the other statements that you said you made. Mexican, Latino, non-English speaking, and assuming that therefore they're illegal, to me is a bigoted statement, and that reflects poorly on our county. And according to these,
well, let me put it this way.
Let me finish, please. According to these statements, or these rules that we have to go by, that they will at all times, that's us, elected, appointed, even employees, act in a way that upholds the values and integrity and good reputation of Nye County. We're reported in the press in Las Vegas and probably soon some everywhere else that, you know, your statements to a lot of people look racist, and that reflects on the whole county. And that's what concerns me.
Okay. Well, are you referring to the doctored email that was put in the paper?
I said the original email that you sent where you say Latino, Mexican, non-English speaking.
I thought, you know, I've already told you what it was, and I'm not bigoted, so thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I have one question. Ms. Matson, have you read our Nye County Personnel Policy Manual, specifically 2.13 Code of Ethical Standards?
Yes.
Okay.
But I can't say no verbatim.
No, but you understand basically what it says?
You know what, I'd have to...
I'd give you a copy of it if you'd like another copy.
Great, give me a copy, I don't have it with me.
Because we are elected officials, we fall in a different category, and other than the general public that when they get riled up could recall us or take other actions like that, that language is put in there for us, and it falls back, and if you read further into it, it'll say that it would come in front of the Board of County Commissioners, and unfortunately that's why you're here today. But I just want to make sure that you understand that I believe it's a requirement that everybody gets hired or elected should go through that. And, Pam, isn't that correct, or direct, that they're supposed to read that policy so they understand it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes, everyone's
You
bound.
can keep that, by the way, if you want, and I can get another copy.
Great, thank you.
Okay.
Give me a call back. I'm just... Oh, go ahead.
I just want to restate for the record, there's confusion here. The assessor sent an email to two people who were both county employees, Mr. Rick Osborne and Sheriff Tony DeMeo. She was not the one that sent this all over the place. She was not the one who put it in the Times. It was an inter-county communication between officials of this county and should have stayed there.
But she is the one who made the statements.
Chairman?
Right.
She made them to another official.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, go ahead.
Commissioner Wickman. There's two things I want to point out. Number one, any kind of communication via email using county email with elected officials is public record. Something you want to keep in mind. The other thing I'd like to say, Shirley, you just stated that in your experience in San Diego, your employer was fined millions of dollars for employing illegal immigrants, and your attempts were to avoid embarrassing Nye County. I want to thank you for avoiding embarrassment to Nye County.
Thank you.
That was sarcasm, wasn't it, Commissioner Wickman?
Well, it was definitely tongue-in-cheek.
Okay. Because I was going to say, I don't think it can get much more embarrassing than this.
As for me, I think when you talk about immigration status in a county like Nye, unless the person violates a crime, I don't think the sheriff is required to make or ask immigration status. He can't just go up and down the street saying, "Show me your papers." I think if you didn't want to go through the county manager, which that's your purview, is him, you should have called ICE if you had a concern. Immigration is the one that takes care of immigration. You should have called ICE. They would have come out. They would have checked the people for their immigration status. I don't see anywhere in the law in the state of Nevada, and the sheriff can correct me, to where he has a right to go up and down the street checking immigration status. Tony?
I thank you for pointing it out, Mr. Chair. May I just read something, just for the record?
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. And in one of my emails with Shirley Matson, I did point this out. First of all, the definition of prejudice would actually fall within the first email. The prejudice and discrimination falls in the definition. This is the problem, that when someone comes to any law enforcement agency and doesn't articulate any kind of criminal activity or anything that would give us articulable reasonable suspicion to address that person, we commit a violation of the 4th and 14th Amendment. And as constitutional officers, we swear to the same U.S. Constitution and the same Nevada Constitution, the same laws that we're up to hold. We're constitutional officers. And whether Ms. Matson or anybody else that has these elected officials, you don't read the Constitution, you don't read your state Constitution, it's too bad for you. But under law enforcement, any police-initiated action that relies on the race, ethnicity, or national origin rather than the behavior of an individual or information that leads the police to a particular individual has been identified as being or having been engaged in criminal activity is a violation of the 4th and 14th Amendment. And what Ms. Shirley Matson what's wanted us to do is based upon color, their race, no articulable criminal activity, one law enforcement agency to violate the same Constitution that the majority of these people want the law enforcement agencies to uphold in your constitutional law. So basically, what was occurring, and what I was trying to point out to Ms. Mason, is first of all, those comments were racist. The definition of racism is there. Even the federal government, who actually came out with this definition, basically say that what Ms. Matson wanted the Nye County Sheriff's Office to do is commit racial profiling and commit violation of the 4th and 14th Amendments.
Thank you.
Ms. Matson is also protected under the whistleblower statute, and she is not an attorney and didn't know that. She just reported something. If I were to call the sheriff's office and say I went to the C-store And maybe they were just joking around, but there was this Asian guy kind of beating up on the clerk. I don't know, might just be a friend fooling around, but you better check into it. Would I be racial profiling or just giving the sheriff's office the facts?
Ms. Lord, let me be respectful in this. The first email basically is blatant racism and whether the Nye County Sheriff's Office to violate people's constitutional rights under the 4th and 14th Amendment. You're a lawyer, you should know that. Thank you so much. Any other questions, Commissioner?
Why did you send it on? Why didn't you keep it to yourself?
Hold on.
I'm ready to make a motion on this issue.
Okay,
Mr. Chairman and
try to make it
members
short.
of, pardon me?
Nothing.
Did you tell me to make it short?
No, I didn't.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioner, thank you.
I'm like barely 5'2". Everything I do is short here. I'm ready to make a motion on this, Mr. Chairman. Based on the testimony from Mrs. Matson and from the witnesses, and based on the information that I have read in the emails and the interviews in the newspaper, I would propose that Nye County adopt a resolution, and I ask that the language in this resolution is as follows. Whereas the Nye County Personnel Policy, Article 2.13, Code of Ethical Standards, states that the elected officers and appointed officers and employees of Nye County recognize that holding public office and/or employment is a public trust, and to preserve that trust, we demand the highest code of conduct and ethical standards. And whereas the Code of Ethical Standards states that the officers and employees of Nye County shall comply with certain basic levels of conduct, and that all elected officials and appointed officials and employees will conduct themselves with honesty and integrity in the course of performing their duties and responsibilities. And whereas the Code of Ethical Standards states that elected officials and appointed officials will, at all times, act in a way that upholds the values and the integrity and good reputation of Nye County. And whereas the Nye County Board of County Commissioners has a legitimate interest in and obligation to protect the interests of Nye County and address any elected official or appointed official who commits acts of omission or commission that negatively impact on the public's perception of the integrity or credibility of Nye County or erodes the public confidence in the county. And whereas Shirley L. Matson, the duly elected assessor of Nye County, made various written communications containing racially charged and insensitive comments concerning the immigration status of contract workers and employees for the county, the nature of which were wholly inappropriate and volatile and served to initiate public backlash. And whereas Mrs. Matson sent many of these communications through the Nye County email system under the seal of Nye County in her official capacity as Nye County assessor. And whereas Mrs. Matson's communications and other subsequent statements made in an attempt to defend her actions and her political views regarding immigration have served to distract citizens from addressing the real problems with illegal immigration, because the focus has shifted to outrageous generalizations such as those made by Mrs. Matson. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Nye County Board of Commissioners does hereby publicly reprimand Mrs. Matson for using her public position in such a manner as to negatively impact the public's perception of Nye County through the making of public comments tending to suggest that Nye County officials tolerate racial discrimination, a position that is wholly inconsistent with the policies and practices of Nye County. That's my motion, Mr. Chairman.
Wrote all that since the evidence has come in, Commissioner? Very impressive.
Hold on.
I have a motion on the floor,
Hold on, I
And
got it.
Mr. Chairman, she has a second.
and I ask that you call for the question.
I have a motion by Commissioner Eastley, and Sam, did you get that whole motion that was so short?
Yes, I did.
Thank you, Sam.
I typed up my motion, and
I got it. Second by Commissioner Wickman. Further discussion from the board? Call for the question. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? That passes 5-0. Okay, Thank you very much, everybody. We'll go to, is there any closed sessions, Brian?
No.
Okay. I do, number 8, general public comment, 3-minute time limit per person. Action will not be taken. Matters considered during this period until specifically included on agenda item as an action item. I have no form, so is there any public comment in Tonopah? Okay, number 9, Commissioner. I have a motion by Commissioner Shinholz to adjourn, second by Commissioner Boraski. Further discussion? Call for the question. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Meeting is now adjourned.
It was obviously planned from the jump, and to tell you the truth, a reprimand from these guys is a badge of honor that my client and I will wear proudly.
Shirley, tell me, you got to speak up a little bit in there, but did you think you got to say everything that you wanted to say?
You know, probably just as much as I wanted to say, because I don't really want to say anything about them, but I think they're wrong, and I've got so much support in the community, and every time, they do one of these things, or Tony goes on the radio or whatever, I get so many more people that are coming in that are supporters. Now they want me to run for sheriff. They're giving me campaign money for my next election. They're asking me to put signs up all over. When I campaigned, I'm for the people. I didn't come up through the unions. I'm not their gal. I'm going to fight for the people. And that's the way it's going to be. I'm not going to stand down. I've got the support of the people behind me, and that's all there is to it.
That's something that Commissioner Shinhoffen spoke about, that he's had about half and half. Some people who want to run you out on the rail, he said, some people who are completely in support of your beliefs. There's a difference between illegal immigration and racial profiling.
Yes, there is. And I wasn't racial profiling anybody. My concern was with it. Well, illegal immigration and there's legal immigration. All I asked was a question.
And I know that, Nancy, you spoke a little bit about Commissioner Joni Eastley and how she already had that resolution prepared.
How obvious was that? She went on for 3 or 4 minutes, and she said this was based on the testimony and the evidence presented today. Nobody could have written that in 20 minutes. That was something somebody obviously spent hours. No matter what was said, this was simply, they had this all planned. They were going to reprimand Ms. Matson. But you know what? That's all they can do. They didn't elect her, and they can't diselect her. And I think she's going to be reelected to this or a higher office.
Now, I just wanted to, I'm sorry.
My name is Caroline.
This is Caroline. Now, Caroline called me up and gave me an interesting story. And she said, based on what she's seen with I'm going to let you speak, the Sheriff's Department, she was considering buying a home here, but will not. So I'm going to let her speak for herself.
I'm no longer considering buying a home here because I have seen people myself who live right around me, and they've had years of experience in construction, and they are now out of work, looking for work as American citizens and cannot find work. And I come from California, and we are so totally upside down there because of illegals and Americans not having jobs, American citizens, and this is what Ms. Matson is trying to stress. As citizens, we need to be employed as American citizens, and I'm a teacher from the prison system, and I see how we have gone down in California because it's draining California. California is in debt, serious debt from illegals filling prisons and just illegal activities, and it's killed California.
Shirley, do you think that your experience in California has influenced what went on here today? Or what went on in the emails?
Maybe yes and no. I mean, it gives me an experience level of experiencing firsthand, so I know it was, I guess I'm supposed to throw that out the door. But yeah, maybe, because I've seen it.
I know that you spoke a little bit about County Manager Rick Osborne and how he posted a paper up in the office, and that you wish that the Sheriff's Office would have just checked into this, and it was just simply a question. You spoke about it being a dead issue. Is it a dead issue to you now? Where are you going to go from here?
Well,
I don't really quite know how to answer that, you know, because I'm actually have got so much support that I've got national television and people that want me to, you know, be on interviews all over. And I think the main thing that happened was that falsified email that the PVT put in the paper. People feel that my, you know, my First Amendment rights were stomped on. That isn't what they were focused on, but that's why when Tony brought all that to the PVT and they printed it, what they did is ignited a passion in people who are, you know, feel very strongly about their First Amendment rights. And so they're trying to squelch my First Amendment rights. That's where all of that's how come there's so much support and there's so much, you know, I don't know. So the news media is so interested in it.
The PVT, and you spoke about the altering of this email that's there, and I know that Nancy might even be able to join in over here and answer some of this. I'm going to get you a little bit closer here, Nancy. Okay. Nancy, let me get you in the shot over here so I can get to a little bit. The altering of the email that you guys are talking about and the double lines on the email that was printed on the front of the PV Times. Tell me about that.
Okay, first of all, this is very obvious. This would be obvious to somebody who's been on a computer for months. The heading of an email is not in 2 columns. It's always 1 column, like this. So somebody moved it. But even more importantly, we actually identified, people looked to see if they ever got this email from Shirley, and nobody could find it. What they did find was this. This was an email sent in response to something that Frank Smith was sending out. And she wrote back to Frank and Donna and what appears to be the remainder of the CCSC list, which I've deleted, okay, about the same time, the same day. And all it says is, Frank, I think you are full of BS. They were disagreeing about something. The names are exactly the same as the ones that are put up on, the ones that were put up on the Times, to Frank Smith and Donna Cox, CC Andy Alberti, Bob Riley, Carol Edwards, and Clay Klein. Exactly the same people. Now, if I can delete the names in a forward, which I didn't send, I just used it to print it off, what they did was they deleted this little email to Frank and put in this text that Ms. Matson thinks she may have written some years ago, but we still can't find where they got it from.
And some of the words are altered, too.
Yeah, it's been changed around. And it had to be, unless they sent this to more people than they're admitting, it had to either be Sheriff DeMayo, Bill Becht, or Rich Marshall. Because the only other person who admittedly got this was Shirley Matson and Rick Osborne. I don't think Mr. Osborne would have done something that stupid. Unless, and of course my client didn't. So unless they sent it to way more people, one of the 3 deputies sent it to the Times.
So where are we going from here as far as that's concerned? Are we looking at a lawsuit?
Of course we're looking into it.
I think it'll be fairly easy, really.
What do you think about the recall efforts and the positive Trump wanting to go through with that and reporting you to the ACLU?
Well, that's kind of interesting because here's the kind of approach. This is how people are approaching me. They're saying, the people call me up and say, we would never sign any affidavit of recall. And then on the other hand, I'm getting reports that a recall election is going to be set up against Tony.
My concern is that these are the people in power, and there's a lot of people that, really, admire them. I don't know why, but there are people that just admire anyone that gets elected. That's why we keep, electing the same congressman every year that keep, raising our taxes and our deficit and increasing the power of federal government, that a lot of people are, dazzled by it. And that's my concern. Now, with Butch Boraski, Donna Cox got more signatures that were necessary to recall him. But then he went around to people and said, take your name off the petition. It wasn't even legal. And he said, there were allegations that people were told, I'm going to come by with a couple of my friends. Very scary stuff. And a number of people took their names off. The case was stalled, and he got back in. But he won't. But Ms. Matson won't have that kind of power behind her to fight the recall, and that's my only concern. But she does have a tremendous amount of public support, and I believe there will not be enough. It's a countywide thing. They will need more than 800 signatures. I don't think they can get them.
So politically, Are you going to run for sheriff? What is your goal?
Well, I don't know yet, but I can tell you that I've got so many people from the Clark County, from Nye County, from everyone else that are, already putting money in the, sending me money to run, and yeah, they think that, I should do something to, and I just want to repeat, I work for the people. I was elected by the people, and, in a fairly large margin, 1,800. Huge margin for Nye County. And I think the sheriff's was relatively small. So the momentum is behind me. The people are behind me. They know I'm looking out for them. I don't work for the commissioners. I work for the people that elected me in this town, and I'm going to continue to do so. Whether the commissioners like it or not, I'm going to work for my constituents. And that's my job. That's what I was elected to do.
I know that you're part of the Concerned Citizens for a Safe Community Group, and Nan.
We don't have this. Concerned Citizens does not have members. We have attendees, just like the town board. Just because somebody comes to a meeting, they're not a member. Just like someone comes to a town board meeting does not put them on the town board.
Is that going to be who's going to be helping you with the campaign?
Oh, I don't know. They didn't help me with it last year. I was one of the candidates that they supported, that they favored.
Were they walking to you to work at the assessor's office? They were escorting you in case anything happened to you?
No, not at all.
Have you had a chance to talk to the workers back there that were working on the detention center since this whole thing happened?
Oh, no. It actually looked like they closed it down for a while, and and I don't want to go there at this point. However, something interesting is that Selwyn Harris said that he went over there and they wouldn't let him in to talk to him.
Yeah. They said they didn't have a hard hat for him.
They didn't have a hard, like they couldn't find one. I meant their construction trailer is right there. And so they wouldn't let him speak to him, so.
Thank you so much for speaking with us, and let us know any further developments in the future.
Thank you.
Well, in the first email, the comments by definition are, we have to go by the definition. That's what racial profiling is, what racism is, because requirement by law is that we don't do that. And the first comments were basically racial. It was discriminatory and prejudice. Definition of racism. The addition to that is for us to initiate investigation, not because of any kind of potential criminal conduct or suspicious behavior, but because the color of the skin, how they looked, and this language spoken. I read the definition of racial profiling that's recognized into the record. And for us to conduct an investigation based upon the email that we got would have been in violation of 4th and 14th Amendments. In addition, in any of the emails that Ms. Matson sent to the Nye County Sheriff's Office, there was no articulation of any kind of suspicious criminal conduct or anything that would give us at least reasonable suspicion that these individuals committing any kind of criminal behavior. There was none of that. If there was, we would have looked at it as a potential public safety issue, and then we could have initiated at least a contact with that individual. There was none of that asserted. It was just based upon skin color and language spoken. Clear violations for us to, clear violations of law enforcement to engage in that. It's like someone walking down the street and saying, well, that person walking down my street, they're just walking. Basically they were lawfully there, So I don't know what they were talking about, but understand is that there's no email that I received from Ms. Matson pointed at any type of articulable reason why that people were concerned for their safety. Outside of the fact she wanted us to profile individuals based upon the color of skin and language spoken, and you can't do that. It's a violation.
I know Bengali was entertaining as well over there, speaking a little bit about his feelings and not wanting to be involved in this.
Well, he was dragged into this. I mean, I spoke to Ben when the comments came out in the newspaper. And Ben basically, she approached him. He didn't know who Miss Matson is. He didn't know what office she had. He kept saying order, but she's the assessor. She approached him in reference to why we're driving through the assessor's yard. And it's a temporary exit for Nye County Sheriff's Office to get to the calls for service from a parking lot until the jail is built, and then we'll move further away from that into our own area. And Ben said she did a lot of talking, did a lot of listening. I articulate I'm not fond of illegal immigration. I very basically say it's what illegal is illegal, but you can't say that these people are not citizens and don't have some type of legitimate residency within the United States, my county or state of Nevada, based upon skin color, language spoken. I mean, I come from the area we spoke. The last agency I policed in was 75 language spoken. We would have been, if we just went by that, and it's racial profiling, so you can't do it.
What do you think about the aspirations that Shirley Matson is talking about as possibly running for sheriff?
Go ahead. First of all, she can't do that. She's not in law enforcement. There's requirements that you'd have to at least have law enforcement be within 1 year of being elected to the office, of going through the academy. If Matson could pass the physical fitness requirements, run a mile and a half in a time, and do that, and then she'd have to go to 6 months of school. So the first year of office, she wouldn't even be able to even be there. She'd be outside in the academy somewhere, going through law enforcement. Miss Matson basically doesn't know the Constitution. Apparently, I had to point that out. You're a constitutional officer. Do your job and do your diligence. And when you wrap yourself around the Constitution, make sure that you understand it doesn't just protect you; it protects other people as well. The 14th Amendment is very plain that no persons will be deprived of due process, and no person will be deprived of any of equal protection under the law. It doesn't say whether you're a citizen or not. And no persons will be deprived of due process and equal protection of the law. So, I mean, she wants to run for office, go ahead. I mean, that would be something that would have to come up. But the fact of the matter is there's a requirement. And there's only, there's a requirement for running for, there's only two, the district court judge and DA and sheriff, the requirements for that office,
So they insist that you released the emails to the press. Do you know who released the emails? Because I know that you've denied it before.
You know what? The emails released to the press. I didn't do it. But the fact of the matter is, even they keep pointing out, is that it's public record. So somebody probably released emails. They got them. My understanding is when the reporter came to the Knight County Sheriff's Office to do the interview, referenced the emails, he claimed they got them from someplace else. So I understand that's just a deflection. That's just it's like the rabbit out of the hat. Focus paid attention over here, but forget about the real issue. The real issue is comments that were made. Trying to initiate some kind of unlawful response to allegations that these people, the only crimes they committed were, or considering a criminal activity being a color of skin or language spoken. So Ms. Matson and their attorney and representatives and everybody else that's involved in that is looking at that and saying that's a distraction. The fact of the matter is, I didn't know about the other emails that were released by the Pahrump Valley Times. They were a shock to me. Those emails, when people look at it, my comments in those emails are back to her. So people can look at it and say, well, the sheriff maybe didn't do his job. That would be incorrect, but I did what my responses were basically pointing out that Ms. Matson was in error, thinking that people's skin color or language spoken is going to initiate some kind of a lawful police response.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Tony.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Right. And really what the commissioners did was to reprimand her, which really is the only action that they really can take, is because of the limitations that commissioners have over other elected officials. About the only thing they could do is just indicate their disagreement and concerns with her statements, and really puts it really kind of back where it belongs, in the hands of the public.
So what, if anything, can the public do at this point? They just recall?
Well, at this stage, the recall is the only remedy that's available. Now, they cannot recall an elected official until they've been in office for 6 months. So no recall petition can even be circulated until June 2nd. So that's the earliest that anything could be done if the public were to choose to do that.
And one of the things that Joni Easley, Commissioner up there in Tonopah, was saying was how this was an embarrassment on Nye County.
Well, and that's where I certainly agree with it, from my standpoint, and to be honest with you, I mean, I've had I try to communicate with Miss Matson, and it's the same thing that I think that, when you're a public official, you really have to be more circumspect in what you say. And I think that the statements that were made, I thought were very reckless, and I think that it did paint a picture that that we think that it's okay for people just to be investigated by the sheriff's office just because of their ethnic background or the fact that they weren't speaking English. And I hope that that's not a view that's shared by many. I think that violates just about every element of our constitutional protections, and I certainly don't want the government to have the right to try to just stop me because they don't like the way I look or what language I'm speaking, and think that that gives somebody the right to question my legality in being in this country.
That is something that the sheriff has to protect the rights of people that possibly are illegal immigrants, as well as people who look like citizens. It doesn't matter what you look like. It doesn't matter what you speak. They can't just go and racial profile people. They can't go and stop people or ask questions unless they have probable cause, right?
That's absolutely right, and you certainly cannot racial profile. And to me, the thing is, and I've said this statement many times before, is that the idea that this is dealing with the illegal immigration problem, I think is really a misstatement of the issues, because the problem is I don't really have much concern about somebody being here illegally from the standpoint of, I'm concerned they're here, but what I'm saying is that if we arrest them and do what we should do to them, we should do that. I don't really care so much about their rights. What I care about are the rights of people who are here legally, who are U.S. citizens. They have a right to be free from government intervention. And again, I'm concerned about the effect that this has on people who have done nothing wrong and then have to suffer the embarrassment of doing this. Because in fact, I think a couple of the workers who were actually involved in this are longtime residents of Pahrump, and to suggest that the concern here is that their money is going out of country or out of the county is quite frankly offensive, and that's why I do support what the commissioners did.
There was a lot of talk that they were speaking a different language. I actually had the opportunity to talk to them, and they had just a hint of an accent. Actually, the people seemed like U.S. citizens. You can't really put them in a box and say that they seem like it or not seem like it. But I can tell you that they spoke English fluently.
Well, and I think that's just one of those things that I don't even care if they had an accent or not had an accent. And I think that the thing is we hear issues with the Hispanic Latino culture, but if you were to go back east and go to Chicago, you're going to go into a lot of neighborhoods where you have people who speak Polish because that's their culture. So people within their culture still like to recognize their culture and still use their native language. That doesn't make them disloyal Americans or illegal. And to suggest that that should be a basis for doing some type of a government intervention is just wrong.
And that it was like there was a little hint of the Arizona law that was coming up in some of this.
Well, and I agree, and I think that when I make reference to the fact of people trying to defend the Arizona law, they're doing this on the basis of, well, if people are illegal, then okay, but if they're not illegal, what difference does it make? And that's the point that I really just want to emphasize. It makes a big deal. It's like, where does it stop if you let the government do this? So therefore, if I'm not doing anything illegal in my home, then it's okay for the police just to come in and rummage through my house. I think everybody would be outraged at that, and this is no different. It's the same exact legal principle. It doesn't change.
Probable cause.
Yeah, we have a right to our privacy. We have a right to be left alone unless there's probable cause. And the color of my skin and the language I'm speaking is not probable cause.
What about the idea that Shirley Matson said that you should recuse yourself from today's hearing?
Well, obviously that didn't come up today. That's kind of humorous. I mean, I saw those references, and I guess I don't understand where it's coming from. It's
She thinks that you were prejudiced against her.
I wasn't prejudiced against her in the least bit, and even if I was prejudiced against her, that doesn't mean that as an attorney for the county in a prosecutorial role, not that this was, really acting as a prosecutor, but I don't like criminals. Does that mean I can't be a prosecutor? I'm prejudiced against criminals. That doesn't make me incapable of prosecuting the case. I wasn't the decision maker. I had nothing to do with the decision. I'm legal counsel. I helped them through the process. I don't make the decision. So whether or not I had any preconceived ideas or had opinions about the inappropriateness of her comments doesn't prevent me from discharging my job as district attorney.
So from this point, there's nothing going to be going on as far as Nye County is concerned with this anymore unless something comes up from Shirley Matson's end as far as lawsuits?
Yeah, from the county standpoint, I don't know what more could come of it, and I'm certainly not been made aware of anything.
Thank you.
Thank you, Deanna.